Wastewater from Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant today and the opportunity to share my message from New Zealand. My name is Umi, and I am an evacuee of Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant accident. When the accident happened, I was 14 years old. My mother's hometown is Fukushima. She is a longtime anti-nuclear activist, and therefore it was very clear that the best thing to do at that time was to leave Japan. It's been 12 years, and a lot of things have changed, but the situation in Fukushima hasn't changed that much. From the beginning of the accident, people's concerns about radiation were dismissed, that it doesn't have any risks immediately. Recently, the government used a lot of money to build a nuclear science education center to further emphasize the idea of safety of nuclear innovation in Fukushima, while cutting off financial support for people who had to evacuate from the most contaminated areas. Most of the local municipalities of Fukushima are against the discharge of the contaminated water, and the Fukushima fishermen's collectives are also against the discharge. But the Japanese central government and Tokyo Electric Company do not have any heart to listen to the people who are most impacted. Recently, leaders from Pacific Islands went to Japan, and the plan to discharge the water has been delayed until a quote-unquote understanding can be reached. There is no understanding that can be reached if what they want is to discharge highly contaminated nuclear wastewater. It is the power of people around the world like you that can send the message to the Japanese government. Let's protect the ocean and our own future together. Thank you for being here today. Yes, give it up for me. Okay, and then just from me, I'm wearing my mask to remind us that now is still a time of death. The death toll from COVID-19 is at 1.1 million in the US and still ongoing. Israel has launched another attack on Palestine like they do every Ramadan. A quarter of US states have banned gender-affirming healthcare for trans people, and 1.5 million people are still incarcerated in cages in the US. Our ability to act with ongoing grief is important. In fallout communities from the TEPCO nuclear disaster, that has been the difference between resistance and connection, and silencing and division. The existence of nuclear power is an act of discrimination. They only built the power plants in Fukushima so Tokyo could reap the benefits while local people paid the price, just like they're doing here in New York. Part of me is still in shock about the wastewater dumping plans. The global north will start to experience water shortages in coming years, while indigenous and land-based people across the world are already feeling the consequences of climate change and resource extraction caused by their former and current colonizers. After everything it has done to harm people and life in the Pacific, in this moment of mass death, how can Japan justify adding a more bit of poison to something as precious as water, as the ocean? My grandparents' ashes are in the Pacific. I grew up by the Pacific. How many fish are going to have their cells ruptured by radiation? How many people are going to have to live in fear of their own homes and bodies and food and spirits? Who is going to pay the heaviest price? I don't think it will be Americans, and I also don't know that it will be Japanese people because the conditions of exposure are already globally unequal. There's a slogan from a local movement that opposed the construction of the second Fukushima nuclear power plant in the 1970s. Hoshou wa ichiji, tochi wa matsudai. Compensation is once, the land is forever. The benefits we get from racism and living in fear are always temporary and not worth what we give up. From occupied Lenape-Hoking, we have to think about the role that the United States has played in the ongoing domination of Asia and the Pacific. And as Japanese, we have to think about how we have accepted that, how we have allowed corporations and imperialists to define who we are instead of facing our own histories of discrimination and violence, like we are being confronted with in this disaster. So let's keep joining together in unity and act from real love that is willing to admit mistakes and willing to change, whatever it takes to show up for each other. If we do that, these governments and companies cannot win. Thank you.